Welcome to Coffee Talk with Liquidshano 1973, an inspirational podcast about the ups and downs of life and everything in between. Here's your host, Shane Lakita.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, folks from all across the land, all across the world, everywhere, throughout every which different place on this crazy thing that we call the internet, where we can reach out to people from all over, everywhere, underneath, and in between. So good morning, everybody. Listen, we're at the midway point of the week, and I'm hoping that your time has been great and your week has been spent doing some of the things that you really, truly want to do and accomplish and achieve and all those things. And I know that usually I put out my podcast on Tuesdays, but today is a Wednesday, and I had to be able to get one out this morning because I have a very busy day ahead of me today in general. So I wanted to check in with all of you. I wanted to check in with you to see where you're at, to see how you're doing, to be able to see what kind of goals you're setting. You know, it's interesting because we usually use these midpoints of the week to give ourselves a gauge, right? We take a look at what kind of goals we have set. We take a look at what kind of financial goals or physical goals or weight loss goals or professional goals, whether you're at work or whatever. And we usually use those midway points to be able to see, are you 50% of the way of what you need to be there to be able to get it done if you work a 5-day work week, right? So here we are on a Wednesday, and where are you at with everything? Are you in a good spot? Are you in a good place? Like, how's it working for you in general? So I hope that it's going well for you, and I hope that you are achieving everything that you need to achieve. You're opening yourself up to be able to receive everything that is being given to you, no matter how much or how bleak you might think that it isn't being given to you, but it is. Life is giving us some good nuggets of things. We just sometimes don't. We sometimes take them for granted or let them pass us by so quickly, you know, and we don't often open our eyes enough for us to be able to see the things that are actually given to us that we're blessed with, when rather we open our eyes plenty and wide to be able to see the things that we may not have, or the way that life does stink sometimes, and the things that do happen to us can be pretty brutal at times with life, right? So that's kind of my little midday point week of whatever you want to call it, of us to be able to continue to push forward, continue to know that you're worth the investment, continue to know that we're in this whole entire thing together. Now, one of the other things I wanted to share with you guys is before we get into the actual podcast for today is around change, right? A really quick snapshot around change. I'm going to be going through here on the podcast a few changes coming up here real soon. Listen, I got a brand new mixer and I got a brand new microphone, and I love the way that it sounds, and I love the way that we're able to really streamline things together, and I'm able to put everything into one big kit and caboodle and one big package for me to be able to bring out to you guys for content-wise, for me to be able to move things forward and be able to elevate performance. And I'm changing over platforms with some of my audio formats where I can actually do some really high-quality audio interviews with people from afar instead of with StreamYard, which I currently use. I may be using a different platform coming up here soon, which I've heard from the podcasting community has been a really, really great asset to be able to move forward with. So there's change on that end, but there's also change a little bit on the front of logos and podcast names. Now, here's the thing. One of the things that I have a hard time with is being seen because I have such a long name for my podcast. I mean, think about it. When you go to punch in the name of a podcast, you punch in Coffee Talk with Liquidshano 1973. What a long name when you really think about it. When you have podcasts such as Serial, or you have podcasts such as Joe Rogan Show, or whatever. You have all these different things that people want to be able to keep it simple and want to attract attention. And, you know, I'm looking to grow. I'm looking to be able to expand my horizon and be able to continue to move this thing forward and be productive. So one of the things that I want to try to do is to try to see what kind of things I want to be able to do outside of what Coffee Talk is. Somewhere in there, I want the word coffee in the title of my podcast. So I wanted to share that with you because I think that there's a value to sharing the story with the folks that listen to your podcast every single day, to the folks that rely on you to be able to give them an energy boost or move them the right direction or focus them in the right place for them to be able to move forward. And I want to be open and honest with you. I was on a message board the other day, and we sat down and we talked about it. And I was like, if I want to rebrand or I want to do something to be able to move forward with a new logo or a new name because it's so long, they were like, well, do it in increments. Do it in small increments. It might be able to help your listeners that you currently have that are loyal to you, that literally have merchandise from you and whatever else that you have across the board, that you want to be able to continue to move forward, and you want to be strategic in the things that you want to be able to do to attract attention or attract a different market or genre of people or demographic of people that aren't listening to you currently right now. I want to be in a place where I can actually move forward and attract new subscribers and new listeners and continue to grow the podcast to a point where I can sustain and be able to move things forward. And maybe this one day could be my full-time job. So that's where I'm at right now. I just wanted to share that with you because change is good, right? Change is good. It makes me nervous because if you think about it, there's a lot of people with Coffee Talk with Liquidshano 1973 shirts out there, mugs out there, and everything. Although, even if you have some of that old vintage stuff that's there, sometimes there's a quality of knowing that you're an OG and a person that's been around for a long period of time with the podcast itself to be able to move forward. So I share that with you because I want to be open and honest with all of you to make sure that you know kind of where my brain is and where my framework is. And one of the things that I'm going to try to do is I'm going to be reaching out to my patrons of the show, and I want to be able to sit down with them to actually ask for some ideas of what the new name of the podcast could be. And if you are listening to this right now and you're not a patron of the show, that's okay. I want your opinion as well. So if you want to email me at liquidshano1973@gmail.com, you can email me to let me know some of your ideas of what the podcast name could be. A couple requirements are that I want to be able to incorporate coffee somewhere in there because that is my thing, and that is something that I do by having coffee with you to be able to get my mind set right and be able to move things forward in the right space. So I share that with you and open that dialogue with you because open and honest communication, authenticity, and all those things are so very important in this space, and I want you to know that you matter to me, and you matter to me in general with everything that I'm trying to be able to move forward with. Your opinion matters because you are the bread and butter of who I'm talking to. I know I do. I always talk about how I do this selfishly for me, but I do it a lot for you as well. I mean, let's just be honest here. I've got subscribers that listen to me that send me messages going, I got you in my ears this morning. You really helped me get me to where I need to be. So I'm not only doing it for myself to be able to right size my brain and get myself to where I want to be, but I'm also doing it for all of you that listen to me, that take the time to subscribe, that take the time to load it to your phone and go out for a walk and or as you go to bed and roll off into the sleep and slumber of whatever it is. You got like, seriously, I'm so humbled by the fact that I do that. But at the same token, you guys are important. You guys are part of my journey. You're part of my whole entire landscape of what I'm trying to work with. So I want to be open and honest with all of you. Okay. All right, guys. So that's kind of the whole synopsis of everything. It's going to take time. It's going to take a little bit of money. It's going to take some other things that I'm trying to be able to work with to be able to continue to move forward. But I'll keep you posted all along the way, so that way you can be part of this exciting journey as we are, transitioning or changing things around or just tweaking some things to be able to keep this thing moving forward. So I love you all, and I appreciate you so very much. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's get right into the meat and potatoes of this podcast, or what I wanted to talk about. I had a conversation yesterday. And we were sitting down talking, and the conversation that we had was just so rich in dialogue that at first it started off as a post on Facebook page on No Finish Line Nation, and I basically put a video out that basically said, hey, let's take an inventory check right now of where you're at right now. So here we are in the month of April. Here we are 3 months past into the new year. We had some good energy going in January, but a lot of us are still quarantined. A lot of us are still boxed in, unvaccinated, those kind of things. So where are we at right now in the state of affairs that you're currently in right now? Where are you currently? And it was interesting because there was a lot of people that shared a lot of just heartfelt moments, and one of the things I wanted everybody to do is to be able to just release it into the atmosphere, right? The intent wasn't necessarily to sit there and wallow in our sorrows or to be able to just share the fact that I'm struggling with whatever, even though I wanted that to spark some dialogue with some people. But the main reason that I wanted to do it is if you're feeling like crud or crap, if you release it into the atmosphere, or you talk about it, or you journal it, or you audio it, you do whatever you got to do, it releases it from you and puts it out into the atmosphere, and it gives you permission to continue to move forward one step at a time. I believe that wholeheartedly. I mean, you guys hear me talk about it all the time. I talk about making sure that you take inventory of the things that you are going through, good and bad. Now, this isn't just for you to have an exercise for you to put a pen on a piece of paper and a moment for you to be able to do an assignment or anything like that. There's a meaning behind it. There's a purpose behind why I talk about journaling or writing down your thoughts and making sure that you quantify the things that you are doing, because it makes it real and it makes it something that you can look at to say also that maybe it's not as big as what I thought it was before, and it seemed like it was so overwhelming. But when I write it down on a piece of paper as something that I'm going through right now, knowing that I can overcome these things and knowing that when I do overcome it, I can rely back on that and take a look at that experience to know that the next time that happens, which it probably will, I'll be able to get through it. So that was the purpose of the video that I put out. I wanted people to take inventory very quickly right now in the moment. Where are you at? Good, bad, or indifferent? And let's talk about it and let's move on and continue to put one step in front of the other, or put steps and procedures in place for you to be able to fix a situation if it is not going awry. And then on top of that, if you have a really, really positive thing that's going on right now and you want to celebrate in those things of what's happening, maybe you're down in weight, maybe you're up financially, maybe you got a new job or whatever, let's celebrate in that also and quantify that as well, to know that at this moment in time, I feel really good. And that's important to celebrate as well. We talk about how we want to get into all the negatives left and right, what's going on in my life, how it's poor, how it's upside down, how quarantine has happened, how all these things are happening to us, but we don't necessarily sit down and celebrate in some of the good things that are happening in our lives. And I think that that's important to talk about. It's important to get in front of for us to have that conversation, because it quantifies both either way for you to be able to move forward. You can tap into it to understand it later. So that's not the purpose of the podcast. I just wanted to preface it with that piece of it to paint the picture of what I had done by putting a video out. Now, the conversation that I had was really, really amazing in the conversation. And Mary Straub, if you don't know her, on No Finish Line Nation, she's incredible. She posted not a rebuttal video, but a piggyback video on top of it to say, Shane got me thinking today. And one of the things that she had said on there was, why are we always looking to go backwards? And I went, wait a minute, my purpose of my post wasn't to go backwards. My purpose of the post was to, right size right now, take inventory of it, release it into the atmosphere, and do what you have to do to be able to move forward. But what she had said is we always talk about what it was like before. We always talk about how pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, maybe back in the day when we lost a lot of weight, maybe we hit our goals with our weight loss. Maybe we hit our goals financially, or we were at the apex in what we were trying to be able to work with our job. And then some kind of thing happened, whether it's with the pandemic, whether it's with racial inequality, whether it's with job loss, whether it's with family issues or whatever. We get to a point where we may lose those things, or we may maybe at a place where we're not proud of ourselves, or we are off the rails, or we're out of control, or we're gaining weight, or we're not feeling great in general, right? And we're in this place where we did sit down and take inventory of it, but at the end of the day, we always look back in reflection to say, oh, remember back then? And this is part of the process of what I talk about, where I say quantify it so that way you can lean back in on it to know that you are a champion. And it's interesting, her perspective when she said, why do we always look backwards? Why do we always look backwards on a time when things were better? When, to be all honest, honest with you, in general, a lot of times the circumstances that were happening are completely different than what is happening right now. And if we want to be able to look back on things like that, and we want to be able to go backwards to be able to live during a time, let's think about that, okay? Now we're going to get into the real thought process, because she got me thinking. And I'll tell you what, when I got my brain going, I was like, oh man, I had an idea what my podcast was going to be about this week, but I'm taking a right turn, Clyde, because she's absolutely right. She's absolutely correct. When we look back on our journey and we look back on things that we've been through, maybe a better time, maybe a time when we were more financially stable, or we were losing weight or whatever, we look back on those times and we always say to ourselves, man, I wish I could get back to that place. I wish I could be in that moment in time. And when you think about it, how much in a lifespan of where you're at within the 65, 75, 85, or 90 years that you live, how often is it that within years of each other, 1 year to the next, your life changes, your body changes, your metabolism changes, cancer happens, all these different things come into play where life is just not the same as what it was going to be, and it's not going to be the same. We can't live these unrealistic expectations of living the same life that we did before when we feel like it was so much better. You know, it's interesting, the old adage of many people that come together and they talk about how when I was in school or grade school or high school, life was so much easier, right? Didn't have bills, didn't have all these things weighing down on top of me. I didn't have all these issues that I had in my life. I didn't have bones that were aching. I didn't have muscles that were aching, age and all that stuff like that. But when you really think about it, I want you to really, truly turn back the clocks and think to yourself. When you were going through it and your brain wasn't processed and your brain wasn't fully formulated and you were going through puberty or going through the teenage years, were those teenage years really the easiest times ever? Were they really? No. And in the moment, if you think about it, a lot of teenagers went through a lot of things, and a lot of teenagers had emotional breakdowns. A lot of teenagers had depression. A lot of teenagers went through bullying. A lot of teenagers went through the stress of school. A lot of teenagers went through the stress of growing up and their bodies changing and everything around them, relationships and bad breakups and all these different things, and the pressure, peer pressure of drugs and alcohol and whatever else that they had across the board. Was life really that much better? That's on one hand, right? When you think about it, to take really true inventory to know that maybe my situation was so much better. Just like back when I lost 110 pounds, literally, I thought that, like when I look back on it right now, because I've gained a good 40 of those back, and I think to myself, man, I lost so much weight. I was feeling really good at that moment in time. When I look back and I turn the clocks back, I had this going for me, I had that going for me. But let's think about all the things that you were doing at that time, and the fact that your body was able to be receptive towards those changes that you made at that moment in time. And maybe right now your body isn't necessarily ready to make the changes the same way that it was before. And you can't just go back to, I'm going to do exactly what worked before, because right now, in this moment, is right now and in this moment. And right now, it may not work. And in this moment, you may not be able to adjust the way that it is. Your body may not be able to respond the way that it does. You have all these different contributing factors. Maybe your stress level's higher. Maybe your metabolism is lower. Maybe your age is a little bit older, right? All of us get older. It's not like we're getting younger at all. And our bodies change with every single second that passes by. And we need to understand the fact that we may not be that same spring chicken at 20 years old as what we are at 35 or 40, or et cetera, et cetera. And when we start to turn the clocks back and live vicariously through who we once were, it's great for memory purposes. It's great to be able to look back and say, oh, that was a good time, or this was a good time, to be able to put into your little sketchbook or your scrapbook, to be able to understand that that's part of the chapter of who you were and who you are and all those things. But right here, right now, is where you need to focus. We got to stop looking in the past. We got to stop trying to be able to jump in the future. It's good to set goals. I get all that for the future. But right here, right now, is the life you're living. Right here, right now, is the space that you're living in. What will you do in this moment, right here, in this moment, as you're listening to me in your headphones, on your speakers, and whatever else, to be able to make your life better today? Let's not look at the past. Mary's point was, we're always trying to dig into where we were in the past, whether it's pre-COVID. That was the big conversation, was around pre-pandemic and pre-COVID, and how we had the free with all to be able to go out and about and do whatever the hell we wanted to do, and go to concerts and hug on each other and do whatever. Well, right now, in this moment, we may not be able to do that. But it doesn't mean that the world has ended. Does it mean that it's all over? No, what it means is this is our new normal of where we're at right now, and stop trying to fight the system and live with it within the means of where we're at right now, and be the best version of you within what we're faced with. I mean, it's almost like erasing the past and creating a new future and a new normal and a new here and a new now. Now, that's hard to do, right? Listen, we're trained to be able to learn from our mistakes, to learn from the things that we're doing. We're trained to be able to grow up a certain way and have certain values and certain ways of living and certain ways of doing things. Why do you think that the political landscape is so volatile that's out there right now? How you have these views that have become political based on health-related issues, whether it's with masks or whether it's with COVIDs or whether it's with whatever, and people are fighting like tooth and nail to be able to say, I don't have to wear a mask, or I don't have to get vaccinations, and I don't have to just because you said to. And we got these people fighting left and right all over the place. I mean, it's become a political crap show across the board. And it's sad to me because if you think about it, when you do look at the past, at least we were at some sort of humanity and basis of being able to move forward. But this is a product of the environment. This is a product of everything that we've been through. Everything with whether it's politically, whether it's governmentally, whether it's our country, whatever it is, across the board, we're in the place that we are in right now based on the fact that we have trained our bodies and minds and we have brainwashed ourselves, whether you're on the left or you're on the right with political spectrum, to be able to move things forward. We are in this place where we just want to fight like hell for our cause and keep moving forward rather than living in the moment, forgetting about the past and knowing that we have to move forward in a space where it's safe and we can come together as a community, as a human race, as equals and across the board. But we don't look at that. We don't look at that because we look at the fact that I'm right. And this is the way it needs to be. And this is how I'm at. And this is how we're trained to be. It's fight or flight. And we literally are in this place where we just fight like hell instead of, wait a minute, let me hear your opinion. Let me hear what you have to say. Let's sit down at the table. Let's compromise. Let's talk about things. Maybe that is what our new normal needs to be. Now, I know I just went down a political rant, but this is what I'm talking about. Because in the past, maybe things worked out certain ways, but in the here and now, this is the space that we need to fix the situation of where we're at. Just like if I lost a bunch of weight at 110 pounds at the age that I was at, my metabolism was a certain way, and maybe those things have changed. And I need to understand that that dynamic is different now. It looks different. It feels different. It is different. I know at the end of the day, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to say to myself, okay, what does it look like right now and how can I be better? How can I maximize my life in the space that I'm living in right now and not worry about all the other stuff? Not worry about the past. Not live in the past and understand that, oh, remember back in the day when I used to wear the leather jackets and life was so much better with my class ring and it was just so much less stresses and whatever else. No, I'm going to live my life to the best of my ability right here, right now. That's the decision that I have to make. I need to stop comparing my past to where I'm at right now or even the future. And that's the other part of it, right? How many of us get into this despair mode of thinking, what is the future of our country and our world? You can go down a slippery slope then, right? Now you're getting into the depression mode. Now you're thinking to yourself that it's bleak. It doesn't look all that great. You know, all these different aspects of the world are crumbling all around us and all this different stuff. What's the future for our children and anything like that? So at the end of the day, the way I look at it is if you're going to worry about the future, what you do now depicts what happens in the future. You don't have to sit there and try to visualize what the future looks like. All you have to do right now is live here, live in the now, and do the right thing here and now for the future. And do the right thing here and now based on, and if not against, what you've done in the past. Opposite, maybe. Maybe you put some changes in place. Maybe you add some features to what you want to do. Maybe you start to change up your goals and start to change up the way you do things and really, truly be mindful and insightful towards what you really want to accomplish in life. And how can you live the best version of you right here, right now? Stop looking backwards and stop putting so much weight on the future. The future's going to happen no matter what. I put a post out the other day, and it really resonated with a lot of people. They came back to me. They started making comments to me. They started sending me messages. It was really cool. One of the things that I kind of like did a little bit of a voiceover aspect of it, where I put a nature scene that was on there. I think it was the ocean scene, and in the background I said, you can only change what you can control. I mean, you can only control what you can change, right? Think about that. If you're in the space of trying to travel and be the best version of yourself and do all the things that you want to do in life and everything else, we often, way too often, too much, park in the space of things that we cannot change. And so in the post, I said, you can't change things like the weather. You can't change things like traffic jams. You can't change the past, and you can't change the future. What you can do is work on how you're going to respond to all of those things right here, right now. Those are the things you can change. Your emotions, your responses, the way you react to things, the way that you go down the road of taking away some of that anger and frustration that you currently have and pushing them aside to know that for the good of where we're at right now and the value of the conversation, I'm going to check my ego at the door, my opinions at the door, and I'm going to sit and communicate and converse because that's what I can change. And I'm going to change that because I need to move this thing forward in a positive, more effective fashion. That's my point. My point is, take some of the things that you might have done in the past. Know that the future could be bright if we continue to work on where we're at right now and simply live in the space that you're living in right here, right now. That old 80s song, what was it? Jesus Jones, I think it was, that sang the song Right Here, Right Now. If I had it on the back player, I would literally say to you, let's play it, let's do it, let's jam out to it. But here's the thing. Now it's going to be in my head. It's going to be like the earworm, right? And I'm going to walk throughout the rest of my Wednesday today singing, right here, right now, right? You guys know what song I'm talking about. But it's true. Right here, right now. What are you doing in this moment to better yourself? To be a better person? To elevate your performance? To be a kinder individual? To invest in yourself? To live within your means and understand that here I am and this is where I'm doing what I'm working with right now, and I'm going to be the best version of what I currently have and not always bitch and gripe about the fact that I don't have all this other stuff and all these other things and whatever. What are you going to do right here, right now? And one of the great exercises to do, as I always talk about, is to write stuff down. So if you want to reflect on the past, go ahead, write it down and talk about it and say, okay, this is where I've been and this is what worked for me in the past. It may not work for me now, or it may work for me now. Whatever it is that you want to be able to do, that's okay. Take inventory of it. But what you have to do is start with a clean slate, a new page. If you're writing these things down about what the future may be or what the past is, great. Turn the page over and start with a brand new, fresh page and understand that your goals are different. The way that you get there may be different. The things that you do is going to be different. The person that you want to become may be different than what you wanted to become before. Because when we opened this whole entire podcast with the fact that change is good, right? With the whole strategy around the podcast or the strategy around people moving or coming and going and people you might lose in your life or death or famine or whatever else that goes on. Change happens in life, and we have to learn how to navigate through those things that we're trying to be able to get through. But at the end of the day, this is part of it. Change is a way that you process things as well. Change can be a way that you look at a viewpoint that you look at things, whether it's political, whether it's any of these different avenues that we go down life that causes emotion. Maybe we need to change the way that we need to look at it. One of the shows that I was watching on TV the other day, I can't remember what channel it was. Maybe it was MSNBC or whatever. And I don't like to watch a lot of news now anyway, because I think a lot of the news is overinflated and it's money driven and everything else. And I get all that, but I also don't listen to the politicians because I think they're all figureheads and of money and cash and whatever else. But anyway, I digress. So on this show, they had talked about how the whole situation down in Georgia. And guys, alert of me just talking a little bit of politics for a second. So down in Georgia, basically, the state itself put down some referendums towards voting elections, right? So remember, now we're talking about political stuff here. And they put down some voting restrictions to be in the fact of they labeled it as being that the fact that they wanted to make sure that it was a safe and secure election process and counting and everything else. And in the meantime, listen, whether you're Democrat or Republican, you know, and I know. I've told you I'm a middle of the roader. I've been a Republican all my life, but I'm a middle of the roader now. And at the end of the day, you are pushing out a lot of the demographic of our rural communities that people can't get to the polls or can't get to the places just simply based on the fact of their economic structure, but they're still an American citizen and they should have the right to be able to vote anyway. So they put these steps and procedures. Now all these big corporations and now all these people across the board are boycotting and moving things forward. And so on either political side of the spectrum, everybody's getting up in arms and they're getting crazy about the fact that, oh, the cancel culture, it's all this different stuff that's going on. Well, at the end of the day, when you really think about it, maybe now this reporter was talking about, and this is a conservative reporter now, don't get me wrong. This is a conservative, somebody that was talking, said, well, maybe we need to look inward. And maybe we need to look at the fact that I know we want to be politically right and we want to be able to continue to move things forward and we want to be able to say my way is the highway, but maybe we do need to look inward and say, is what we're doing here the right thing? Is what we're doing here the right thing in the moment where we're at right now as society changes and the things are changing around us with the ways that we can do things, whether it's through internet or whether it's through the process or whatever else, and not just be so stodgy in our old views of the things that we're trying to be able to do. Is what we're doing right, or is what we're doing it because we're just emotional and we're running down the gambit of being my way is the highway, my way is the right way, right? It's the same exact concept of what I'm talking about here. This is your clean slate moment. Your clean slate moment, whether it's in your weight loss journey, whether it's in your financial journey or your professional journey, whatever it is that you're working on, now is your moment to be able to have a clean slate, a clean paper, and a clean draw for you to be able to do whatever it is that you want to do right here, right now, and make whatever changes and decisions that are based on the fact of doing the right thing versus doing what you think has always been right. Does that make sense? Because it made a lot of sense as I was listening to Mary talk about it. I probably went down a more of a rabbit hole than what Mary was actually bringing to the table. And she even said in there, I have to think about this more because this is really something that is a thought process. But I love that she brought it up. Because if we continue to wish that we were in the past, wish the things that we had during an easier, quote unquote, easier time or whatever, it's not going to be there. We're not going to get there. Guys, we're not living in the past. We're living here and now in this moment. So how will you today be great and do the things that are necessary for you to be successful moving forward? What will you do today to set goals around the fact of today's society, where you are sitting right now? How will you change things to be able to move forward and make a better future for yourself based on what we're living right now, not what we lived in the past? Right? So much love to all of you. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Please do us a favor and leave feedback and a 5-star rating on whatever platform that you use.